Good afternoon. My name is Lee Sheldon. I'm a registered psychologist at Indigenous Psychological Services. My Cree name is Pipicho, which is the robin that works hard for others. And we use these podcasts as a really good opportunity to really share knowledge, empower others, educate, and really connect and get, a few of our team members to share a little bit about themselves because they are so amazing. And we just really want to hear from them. So, welcome, Jasmine. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Jasmine Nanooch. I'm from Little Red River Cree Nation in Treaty Territory. And I'm a provisional psychologist here at Indigenous Psychological Services. And yeah, so that's me.
Yeah, yeah. So, Jasmine, how long have you been a provisional psychologist?
Since August of 2024.
Yeah, and what made you want to become a psychologist?
Um, well, I grew up on reserve. And when I was in high school, I would say that's about the time that I really was curious and interested in psychology, and wanting to know more about people. But at the time, I was also becoming more and more aware of a lot of the challenges living on reserve, and just kind of noticing, especially with my peers at school, um, things that were going on, and I just really wanted to help. Um, I used to kind of like think to myself, like, what would it be like to be able to create something on a reserve or any reserve, to offer services to people or to, give back in some way that would kind of help just build people's kind of sense of self. Um, and that's kind of the route that I took. And when like we did like a whole assembly, we used to do assemblies all the time, but we had an assembly one time and there was a teacher that went around and asked all the students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was just kind of like locked on to being a psychologist. And yeah, so I kind of followed that path.
That's really cool, Jasmine. And how did you find us? How did you find us?
Um, Actually, I didn't even know that there were services that were like very specific to Indigenous communities and populations. Um, I knew that was the route I wanted to take. It was the people I wanted to serve. Um, but I actually, when I was doing like my bachelor's at Concordia, um, a family friend actually mentioned that she had met you, and she's like, "Oh, I think you should really meet with Lee and like get to know, like pick her brain, ask her questions. She might be able to help, push you in the right direction." So I kind of reached out, and that's how it started.
That was like many moons ago.
Yeah, exactly.
When I first met you, I got really excited because I was like, yay, there's more. There really needs to be more Indigenous people in this helping field. And I would like for you to maybe talk about that process for you, but also, you've always said this, Jasmine, that you've always wanted to go back to your nation and give back. Like you've said this, for so many years and you still say it. And why do you think that that's so important to you?
um, because I think like just based on a lived experience, um, I just saw things so much closer. And whereas like when you're living in the city or you're living kind of further out, you don't see those things. You don't see all of the little things that are happening. And I just really, really care about my nation and my people. And I want to I want to help in some way.
Yeah, I definitely can see your passion. It really lives through as you support people and your focus. And what has your experience been like, as an Indigenous student going into this field? Was there barriers for you? And, what has this process been like?
Yeah. I mean, with all schooling, there's always barriers. Um, it was definitely a challenge, I think. When I was like finishing high school, I was also pregnant, and I had my first child, my only child. Um, and it was really challenging at the time to think about, okay, do I still want to continue down this path? Do I still see myself kind of going to college or university and like pursuing whatever it is that I need to do to get to where I am? Um, as well, like the whole schooling process itself was so confusing. Like I didn't feel like I had a base like knowledge for the school system. It's so much different, right? And so it's a bit of a shock. Um, and that in itself is really challenging. So I couldn't immediately come to Edmonton when I first finished high school. Obviously, like my daughter was really young. Um, it was just wasn't feasible. So I kind of had to very, very slowly, build my credits. I had to catch up on stuff. I had to do academic upgrading. Um, and at the same time also work. Tried to work a job, really tough. But like I just kind of what kept me going, I think the most was knowing that there were other people that had done it or could do it. Meeting other students that, had more than one child or even having one child and they were still pushing through. And also my family was a big part of that support as well. They were there as much as they could be, even as I know they were kind of having their own barriers to that as well.
Yeah, and what would you say some of those barriers, as becoming even a psychologist? Because I've even noticed the barriers for Indigenous people to become a psychologist. Can you kind of share some of those for you?
Yeah. Um,
Where do you start?
yeah. Right. I think the barriers itself, I think just it, because you're working within a system, right? And especially coming from reserve or even just coming from like more of the like indigenous ways of knowing being like that you're not really prepared for that. And so trying to step back into a system that's like very much a system is like a huge barrier. um trying to stay on task, finish deadlines, all of that. And then all the paperwork and all of the things that you have to do in order to become a psychologist. There's so many different like check boxes you have to tick, and like I can't even like name them all. But like I think just trying to get through it one step at a time um, is like really the only way you can do it. But it's not to say that it's not hard every single time.
Yeah, and what supports you, Jasmine, with those barriers and systems? Like what has really helped you?
I think just like the community of like IPS, having, coworkers and like people that you really connect with that understand and can really like support you through that. Um, and then also like the vision, the original vision of where is this going to take me, and what am I going to be able to do with this? And so sticking with that and thinking of the Indigenous community, that's kind of what is pushing me forward.
Yeah, Jasmine, I always called you like Cookum energy or, the wise one, stoic. Keeps
The
us very
space.
grounded. it was just so, I feel like you've been such a gift to IPS, Indigenous Psychological Services, because you really seen this Western and then this Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing. And so we really, you were integral with the foundation of creating IPS, and that these were two different systems. And we really needed you. Like, you were part of those pillars of what it needed to be and look so different. And what was that like? Because we aren't like the Western psychology office. We are so different that you were part of creating something extremely different. Do you want to talk about a little bit about that?
Um,
I hope you do.
yeah. I'm trying to like sum it up in a nice way of how I want to say this. Um, I mean, it was like stepping into IPS, especially like coming in as a student first, um, and kind of like starting to think, okay, like how can we kind of push this agency forward in a way that's going to like in a good way. And like what is needed, how can I be a part of this, because really it's like the vision itself of like wanting to pave a new path for indigenous people, and like just like so wanting to be a part of that. It was like it has its challenges, right? Like we're working so hard to not just be in that system, the Western system, and operate differently, and to be super, super informed and have that cultural humility with the work that we do. Um, but like realistically, we are working in Western society. So we're constantly coming up against different barriers and challenges for ourselves. Um, and we have to try to operate within that system, but also in our own way.
Hmm. Yeah. What have you noticed about that since we really shifted to our own way within, holding this other system?
Um, like I said, like it's comes with its challenges. It can be very tiring at times, um, but it's also really, really fulfilling work, to be able to be a safe place for people, to come in and to be able to hear people's stories and have the like the education, the knowledge, the again the cultural humility to be able to support those people and sit with them and be with them in a really safe and comforting way, like that is amazing.
Mhm. I always like when we get together and have like our sitting in circles and having conversations, I always say, what makes us so different? Why do we have to be different? And what makes us really unique about, those systems that support people? Do you maybe want to capture on that?
Yeah. Okay, let me think. Like, I'm so sorry, you got it, like what makes us different.
Yeah, yeah. What makes us so different from, all of those, the
Yeah.
Western, typical psychological office? Yeah.
Mhm. I think just the relational piece. Like
Mm.
we're constantly working, from from like the heart, and that really shows in so many ways. Like you can kind of say that or you can kind of be that as an individual, but it's different when you're in the group, and you can feel it. Like there's strength in the circle, um, and the circle leads everyone, and everyone has a voice and can be heard, and that's it's not just surface level, it's very deep.
Yeah. Damn.
Blow you away.
Good. Yeah, so any advice for people coming into the field? Any advice for, people coming into the field that may be Indigenous? Like, do you have any, advice for your, 20-year-old self that is just thinking about, maybe I want to do this?
Yeah, I I would say, just take it one step at a time. Don't don't overwhelm yourself with all of the different things that are going to come next. Just see where the next step takes you and lean on the people around you if you can, and also connect with other there are other Indigenous counselors and professionals that you can reach out to, and they will support you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really fantastic. Is that community and how it's so important that we really support each other, especially going into this kind of field. It is like a feeling of being on like a lonely island sometimes and having your own
Yeah.
problems and stuff like that. And then
Hmm.
any advice for even like, the word clients is very Western, but they're just people like hearing this that are scared to reach out for help or have been burned by the Western influence of accessing help. Do you have any words or, anything to kind of like just get them to hear that, they're not alone? Is there something that you can offer?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that when it comes to mental health and counseling, I know that there has been a lot of harm that has been done in the past by a lot of people. Um, and that's, we take that into account, right? We don't, not validate that because it's so important to recognize that that has happened in this field. Um, but, mental health is also changing. Um, and it's also not as clinical or as Western as people might think. What I like to say sometimes too is that you're just coming in and we're visiting, right? If we can just visit, we can have tea together, or if we can just get to know each other, that's really all it is. And in that process, I'm here to support you in whatever way that looks like.
Yeah, that's very soft. I feel this soft and gentleness. Why do you think the gentleness is so important when we're doing therapy or when we're sitting with another person?
Because I think the world has been so rough, and unkind. Um, it's fast paced, it's often invalidating. So, if we can be the opposite of that, be gentle, be relational, and actually be able to witness people as they are, then I think we're making a bigger difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your words, why do you think culture is so important? Because we're always like culture is key, culture, those indigenous worldviews. In your mind, like why do you think and how has culture really impacted your journey?
Yeah. Um, because culture is healing, right? You can feel it whenever you talk about it with people or whenever you're listening. Um, it's touches deep within your soul, um, and in a way that you can actually feel. And I think we need that piece because it's something that was taken, and it shouldn't have been, right? So I think in that way we need to right that wrong, and we need it to support us because in that way culture is very supportive. It really touches on all of those points that we need to be in balance. Um, for myself, I'm still on my journey. I'm still learning. Um, I have now like still finding opportunities to really connect with my culture, connect with my people, my grandparents, and being able to do that and trying to do that in whatever way I can means so much to me. Um, like I love our culture, um, and it's so unique, and it's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can sense that it means so much to you. It means a lot to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're coming to the end of our time together. Any favorite strategies you'd love to share for our audience and viewers? Is there some, just throwing you off, some strategies that you love to use in your sessions?
Favorite strategies. Uh, okay, well, I'll take from one of my trainings, and then also like a little bit of the culture. Um, I like to use like a lot of like orienting if I can, just depending on the person. Um, just using your eyes to kind of take in the room, whichever room that you're kind of in, and
Mm,
really allowing your eyes to kind of slowly, very, very slowly take in your surroundings or whatever you see in front of you,
yeah.
and even slower. It's always funny because I have to kind of, you're trying to train your eyes to slow down
Yes.
and you don't want to do that.
My eye is going like this, like,
Yeah. But it actually like allows your brain to really kind of settle, your body to settle, and remember that you're in the present, right? And over time, you kind of start to get used to doing those things. It's like when you enter a new room or a new space, you have to give yourself time to get used to it, right?
I also notice
And
my breathing changing.
yeah, yeah. I actually, yeah, like it slows you down, like your internal rhythm down. That's how I like to say it. And because we live in a fast-paced world, sometimes we need to slow down a little bit. And then if it's not that, I'll always kind of invite smudging in session and just having like that moment of silence together, just catching our breath.
Yeah, that's very lovely, Jasmine.
Yeah.
And the most important question, we're going to end. So, it's going to be very tricky. So you got to brace yourself. Fried
Gosh.
fried bread or bannock?
Oh,
Fried
bannock.
bannock or
Bannock. Yeah, oven baked bannock. Oh, that's the best with
right?
jam. Yes.
There you go. That wasn't great. Any last words that you'd like, just to share or yeah.
Yeah, just thank you so much for allowing me the time, the space today, and of course for allowing me into the space of IPS to do a lot of this work and to learn. Yeah,
Yeah, well, thank you, Jasmine. You've always been this person that has like I don't know how to explain it, but like, when we say that you were so pivotal in the pillars of creating the foundation, it was almost like you really knew that, the wisdom of how this really had to look differently. And you really kept us grounded with it. And so there was this amazing thing that you tended to, or you still do, is that you still keep us focused in this wisdom that, that really holds us. And that, how it has always been about the clients, or, that's the Western way of saying it, but about the people that we work for and the people that we work with, and how, these systems of that they're there, and sometimes they're like these tornadoes, but our foundation had to be really, really solid. And I really appreciated so much of like your words and your wisdom and how you've really kind of grounded us into that. And again, like this is something that had to be shaped from nothing to something. And so it really took a team, like it took a big team to really keep this in a place of where it had to be support each other while we're supporting the people that we work with.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for saying. Oh gosh.
I
You
always
know,
say that I'm emotional and I'll be like, oh my goodness. And you're just like, well, let's try this. Let's do this. Like you're very, you just have this way of how you've overcome so much. And I have this way of like, ah, there's this. And you're very strong in your words and wisdom.
mm, yeah. I mean, like if it's not me, any one of us, I think in the circle will become the rock as needed, right?
Yeah, but you were just so amazing.
Okay, thank you. I'll take
And
the
telling you
compliment.
too. Well, thank you so much, Jasmine, and thank you, listeners, for being a part of this. I'm going to keep connected and stop recording then, hi.
Thank you.
I'm just